Hi guys, this is Carissa with Inky Fairy Designs, and I am here with a coloring video using Copic markers. We're going to be coloring this cute card. This is for the Greeting Farm Fresh Challenge for October. Our challenge this month is monochromatic. So I went with a 1-layer card on some craft cardstock. I'm just stamping my images and masking them off right now. I am using craft cardstock. I believe it's from Paper Tray Ink. It's just some that I've had in my stash forever. I do think it is from Paper Tray Ink though. So I'm using a few different stamps today. The fox comes from Oh What Fun. The little Ian comes from Call Me Ian. They're all by the Greeting Farm since this is a Greeting Farm challenge. I'm stamping them all in Memento Tuxedo Black ink because I plan to color with my Copics today. So I'm just creating this little scene. I'm using this tree that also comes from the same set that fox is in. And now I'm going to keep my masks on there and do a little bit of ink blending for the background. I'm using Distress Oxide Fossilized Amber, and I'm just kind of random. I just tore a sheet of masking paper off, and I just like, what is that, sponging? Blending it in to the background, and it ended up looking like a kind of like a sunrise, kind of really very soft and pretty. I love the way it turned out, but it wasn't like my intention. I just was gonna add a bunch more colors, but I really liked the way the yellow looked, so I just kept it. So I have all of the ink colors that I used on my card on my blog over at inkyfairydesigns.com. You can check that out. The entire list of colors that I'm using are there. I do have the marker caps on the upper left hand corner there, but you might not be able to see them. So it's probably going to be easier just to head over to my blog and grab that if you're interested. So I'm doing monochromatic coloring, and my tip for monochromatic would be pick out what color you want to use. What do you want your color to be, color family, and then pull out some markers that are in that color family. I decided with the craft cardstock, I was going with more of like a vintage feel. I love this little Ian character. I think he looks totally old school with that cute hat on. And so I went with the earth tones of my Copic markers, or browns. I started with the E5 series, so E51, E53, E55, E57, and E59, and I was going to stick with that, but then I felt like I needed a little bit of a different tone into my monochromatic. So I pulled in E49 for some of my darkest shadows. And then I also pulled in some of the E95, E97, and E99. So really, I didn't use a ton of colors. I think total maybe 10 or 12 markers are used on this entire card. And so you want to keep it simple when you're doing a monochromatic color scheme, but you do want to also have enough variety that you have some dimension and some variation from your light tones to your mid-tones to your dark tones. So when I am coloring with this monochromatic theme in mind, I want to have a dark tone next to a light tone. So his hair and the fox's fur are really dark. So then I go in and I want to create a lighter tone. So I'm going in with the skin tone, and I kept that E51, E53, and so that's more of a lighter color. And I did that on the face, the skin, as well as the fox's kind of like furry white areas. And then here's where I brought in the E95, 97, 99, and I just wanted to warm it up a little bit. I needed another kind of tone, more of like a middle tone. And so I put that in between like that white area and the very dark area. So it breaks up and gives it more depth, but it still keeps it that monochromatic. Because I think a lot of times when we're coloring monochromatic, it can get very flat because you're only using a very few colors. But if you kind of try to think about the colors that you're picking before you get into it, and you want to have a really light a really nice medium and a really nice dark, you're going to get a really beautiful image with a lot of depth. So to create more of that depth, I did bring in a BV23 because that's going to be my shading, my darker shading areas for like the skin tone and the whiter areas. I also bring it in on the hat when I get to the hat just to deepen up those shadows because it's such a large area. In the smaller areas you can get away with 2 or 3, but with the larger area sometimes I want maybe a 4th color just to deepen up those shadow areas. So I did end up using that on the hat as well. But you can see as you break up the colors and you have like a dark and a light and a medium, and you'll see on the hat I'm going to do the brim this kind of medium color, and then I'm going to do the top of the hat that same color. But for that little band in the middle, to break it up so it doesn't get lost or doesn't just fade away, I'm going to bring in my deeper shadows with the E49 and the E57 kind of colors. So it's going to break up those 2 colors, give more depth and dimension to the hat, and keep with that monochromatic theme. So I hope that helps. I really, my coloring, you can go back on older videos and see I always color light to dark, and I always then come back blending from dark to light, and then if I need to blend more, I just add it where I want. But for the most part, I mean, I always go light to dark and then dark to light. So you'll see that throughout, and when I list my colors, you can see which ones are the lightest, and you can, if you want to copy this or try it on your own, just start with your lighter colors, because that's the way I color. But of course, there's all kinds of ways to color. So I really wanted to kind of explain why I chose these colors for the monochromatic. And if you're looking for ideas on monochromatic, you can choose any color family. You can even, do colors like red, blue, purples, as long as you keep it all in that same color family, it's going to be monochromatic. So I think it's a cool challenge. I love coloring on craft cardstock, especially with Copic markers. It's different than coloring on my Copic blending cardstock that I normally do, but it's really, really cool, and it's got such a great effect. So I'm just going in and kind of blending out his face a little bit more. Now I'm going to add my masks back on, and I'm going to add a little bit of a ground to the image. And I just flipped that same mask over and added another oxide. I think it was Vintage Photo, the same color that I did the trees. And it didn't line up perfectly, so I pulled that off and kind of blended it a little bit more into that yellow, and that's it. That was super easy as far as the ink blending on the background. I did want to ground my images a little bit more, so I did use that BV23 and just added a little bit of a drop shadow in front of those guys, and that grounded my images and really kind of completed my card. The last thing that I'm going to do is add some white highlights with my Uniball white gel pen. This is my favorite pen for adding white highlights. And this actually makes the whole image pop with that monochromatic theme on that craft cardstock. And it just really brings out all of that coloring. The last thing that I did was I picked a sentiment, and I used a different stamp set for that. You can see that on my blog. Added a little bit of white dashes along the bottom just to tie it all in together, and that's my card. So I hope you enjoyed this video. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time. Bye.